Welcome to the Crash Data Guidance tutorial. These training modules will cover each step described in the FDOT State Safety Office Crash Data Guidance with hands-on project examples. This recording covers Step 2, Merge Data, which is one of 5 steps described in the guide. These modules are intended to provide detailed guidance and explain the how-tos to transportation planners and engineers working with crash data. Speaking to you today, we have...
This is Benjamin Jacobs. I'm the Florida Department of Transportation's State Safety Office's Crash Records and Research Administrator.
And I am Rupert Giroux. I am the Safety Data Coordinator at the Florida Department of Transportation at the State Safety Office.
And I'm Vanessa Portal, and I support the State Safety Office as a consultant.
For today's training, we will go over at a high level how to access the crash data guidance and the level of information you can find within this resource. Afterwards, we will recap the activities from Step 1. We will cover some details from EDMS that will be useful in the next steps for crash data analysis. And lastly, we will go into a live demonstration using our project example for safety analysis and work through how to merge the 3 crash datasets from Step 1.
The Safety Crash Data Guidance was developed to help add clarity and consistency to the use of crash data for safety evaluations. The purpose of this guidance is to illustrate step by step how to leverage the most complete and recent crash data as required by various FDOT manuals to perform safety analysis. The most recent version of the guide is available through the State Safety Office.
If you just search on any browser FDOT SSO, you're going to see a menu on the right that will show you a variety of resources. The crash data guidance is saved under safety engineering. And as you scroll down on this link, you're going to see the crash data systems and mapping as an option. Under this website, the Safety Crash Data Guidance is the first link that you're going to see listed as the resources.
Note that the guide is updated as resources are modernized, and the most recent version of the guide should be used at all times. A technical memorandum will be published announcing the release of the crash data guidance and can be accessed on the State Safety Office and the Traffic Engineering and Operations website. During the last module, we went into more detail about the crash data guidance and available resources that will be needed to complete a safety analysis. We walked through CAR Online, SSO GIS, and Signal 4 Analytics. Also, we covered the access requirements for each database. We showed how to access the EDMS and download crash reports from this. During the Step 1 training, we will be going into a deeper dive for EDMS on Step 2, since the crash report download usually takes a bit longer to complete. Let's go to the EDMS.
Thank you, Ben. So going back, if you want additional details on how you can access the databases and the information that you will need for each of them, the Step 1 training recording covers all the details that you will need to know. As Ben mentioned, EDMS take a bit longer to download the crash reports. Since it took longer to process the crash reports, we didn't get to show you this part on the completion of the Step 1 training. This is a traditional email you would see once you request the crash reports download. It gives you a file location where crashes are saved. Something that we wanted to bring up that it's important for folks to know is that the crashes, as we were mentioning on the training, some of the crashes may include different versions of the crash report. An example that I have here, we basically exported the crash reports for the corresponding crash data. In this particular example, you're seeing that there are 2 crashes with 2 reports for the same crash number. So the first 4 digits, they indicate the year when the crash was reported, followed by the unique identifier from the crash itself. And then underscore and the numbering following is a different version number that you have for that specific crash. We suggest, and it's common practice, to review the different iterations or versions of the report. It often happens that the crashes may include additional information. They may include information that was found either related to blood alcohol content or additional follow-ups for fatalities or severe injuries. And as you can tell, there are several crashes that have updated versions of the report. It's important to note that information included in the first version of the report, some of that information is not carried over to the updated versions. So we highly encourage practitioners to review the versions of the report to be able to obtain the necessary information. As a quick reminder, this is how you would navigate to the EDMS or electronic document management system. Once you log in, you're going to be able to detail the unique crash identifiers that you're looking to obtain the reports for, and then you will get in that corresponding email that I just showed. All right, so now we're going to move into the project example. The project that we're using for this training is a resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation, or RRR. The project will be completed along State Road 932 from west of Northwest 82nd Avenue to east of 6th Avenue in Miami-Dade County, District 6. We use the following information to download the crash data in step 1. It is recommended to download the last 5 full calendar years of data and the current partial year up to the day before the data is downloaded. Now that we have covered the essential background for the guide and recap what steps we took under step 1, crash data download, we will dive right into step 2 of the guide. And for that, we're going to be doing a live demonstration of how you would go about merging the 3 data sets. On the left, we have the car online. In the middle, we have the export from SSO GIS. And finally, on the right, we have the data from Signal 4. While the information and the attributes will be a little bit different for each of the data sets, for step 2, merging crash data, we'll be focusing our time today on the crash unique identifier. For car online, this attribute is the first column that you see on the output. I'll go ahead and highlight these column headers so it's easy to follow during the live demonstration. For SSO GIS, the column name that contains this attribute, it's called FDOT crash number. And lastly, for Signal 4, it is the first column that you're seeing within the dataset. However, if you pay closer attention to the crash report number, you're going to notice that the Signal 4 crash only has 8 digits. So GIS and car online actually have 9 digits. In order to go through the duplication process, we're going to have to make these consistent. And with all the Excel wizards, you can probably find 100 ways how you do that. I'll show you what I like to do, and I find this to be the easiest and quickest way to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. So what I do is multiply that crash number by 10 and copy the formula over to the rest of my records. Now we are ready to go ahead and merge the 3 data sets for the duplication process. And what I do, I'll start with SSO GIS. I'll copy that data or the crash records at the end of the car online data set. And what I like to do is add a quick note as far as the source of the data to help me compare or do additional post-processing steps as needed. I will go ahead and do the same process for Signal 4. If I just copy the cells, it'll give me a reference error. So make sure that when you copy, just paste the values instead of the formulas. And I will do the same note of adding the source for this data. Now we have the entire database or the entire data set in a single location. We have close to 8,300 crashes that yielded from the 3 databases. And we are ready to move into the duplication process. Excel has a really neat feature that helps me identify duplicate numbers. And I'll go ahead and expand this so it's easier to see. Under the Home tab, if you go to Conditional Formatting, highlight Cells, Rules, and select Duplicate Values, what this does is compares the data range that you selected and basically highlights where you have numbers that are repeated among those cells. One thing you're going to notice, there are obviously several crashes that are coming up as duplicates. If you go into car online, you're going to notice some of those crashes are actually not reported within other databases. And that could be for a number of reasons. And our recommendation is to always maintain the car online as a primary source of crashes, meaning if you have a duplicate crash, for example, for this, remove it from the SSO or the Signal 4 dataset instead of car online. And the reason why we decide to keep the car online as a primary source is due to the added effort of the location processing that the FDOT SSO goes through. For duplication, there are multiple ways or methods that you could go about. I'll show you two today that have been extremely helpful. This one is a shortcut and an easy way to duplicate data. If you go under the data tab and navigate to the remove duplicates, this will basically select the data set and say which crashes you want to remove. We're only going to be using the crash number as the comparison attribute, and I'll go ahead and click OK. At the end of that process, it prompts up this window that says 4,202 crashes were duplicates and 4,071 crashes were unique, and those remained. So once you have gone through that step, you are going to see that you have those 4,072 crashes within the data set, excluding the header. You could take multiple approaches on how you would go about translating this to the full data sets from SSO, GIS, or Signal 4. I'm going to undo the duplication process that I just went through and show you another method. I could go about filtering my data set to show me where those rows are duplicate values. And what I could do is, for SSO GIS only, I could go ahead and select those crashes that were duplicate values, copy them over to my SSO GIS data, and remove them both. I could go about the same process for Signal 4. I will go ahead and demonstrate that so you have a visual. So now I'm only copying the crashes that are duplicate values within Signal 4. And I'll go through the same step of highlighting those duplicate values, filter by those crashes that are duplicates, and I'll go ahead and remove that from my data set. I will also go ahead and remove these crashes, and now I will remove the data filters that I had. You can also go ahead and remove this dummy that we created to make the data sets consistent. And now you have the duplicated data set for Signal 4. I do not overwrite my data. So what I always recommend doing if you ever need to go back to your original files, I basically save this data as a new file. One thing you're going to notice is that most of these files get downloaded as a CSV file. So any adjustments that you make, or even adding a second tab, will get deleted. So again, if you're saving this, make sure you save it as an Excel workbook so you're not losing that formatting, that time that you spend. Let me clear that out. Those are two methods that you can use for the duplication process because it removes that human error of manually selecting it or going to another Excel. I tend to gravitate to removing the duplicates built-in tool within Excel. And with that, we have 71 records that remain unique to our database. Again, you could go about selecting the specific crashes and removing them manually. That could be time consuming and it introduces a lot of human error. So whatever method you decide to choose, whatever is the quickest or easiest way to do, I recommend sticking to a method and being consistent. You could go through the same thing of making sure that you no longer have any duplicate values. And you can easily do that by repeating the same process of highlighting duplicate values within your data set. And here we're seeing that there's no more duplicate crashes within our data set. And that is basically less than probably 10 minutes to get through once you get your bearings on what you're doing. And now we're left with the merged data set, and we are ready to move into step 3 and step 4 for data summarization. Many of you may be wondering why go through the effort of adding multiple data sets. And we put this summary table together of the results we got from our project example. And this table provides a summary of the number of records that we included as part of the original export and the number of crashes that were removed after finding the duplicates using the unique crash identifier on the last column to the right. And for car online, like we mentioned, we had 2,770 records. We did not remove any since we want to keep car online as our primary data source. For SSOGIS, we had almost 2,900 crashes. We ended up removing 2,750 records, yielding 136 new crashes to our corridor. And lastly, for Signal 4, we had 2,642 records. We had about 1,500 duplicates, and this resulted in the 1,165 unique crashes. And we were left off with roughly 4,000 unique crashes. And if you were to only do one of the databases, you're going to see that creates a significant gap. And there's a lot of information within the crashes that leads into safety improvement identification within an upcoming project. Highly encouraged to get into the habit of leveraging these 3 data sources since each of them provide really helpful information. Once you have the 3 data sets merged and the 3 include unique crash identifiers, we will then move into the cleaning of the data, which is going to be the next training that we will do. We will go over in more detail what are the unique crash attributes that we like to clean before going into the data summarization for any safety analysis.
Thank you for watching the training module on how to merge crash data. This module covered step 2 of 5 from the FDOT State Safety Office Crash Data Guidance.